Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Robbins Works, brought to you by the Robbins Regional Chamber in partnership with Spherion of Middle Georgia. I'm April Bragg with the Chamber, and I'm excited to share Robbins Works with all of you joining us for this timely discussion today. Robbins Works is all about connecting employers and job seekers, sharing industry trends, and providing access to resources for career opportunities. This shared resource provides engagement opportunities through our exclusive Facebook group, also titled Robbins Works, as well as digital and print resources and interactive virtual programming, just like this show we're hosting today. I'm excited to be joined by Laura West and Kyla Glenn with Spherion Middle Georgia, both on Facebook in our group and YouTube. Some of the topics they will discuss today are the unemployment benefits in Georgia, the supplement ending this summer, what getting back into the workforce looks like. We're a year beyond the COVID launch or hit, if you will, back in March of 2020, and still seeing repercussions of that in the way that it's impacting our workforce. They're going to touch on some interview tips, both for employers and employees, addressing those in the virtual and in-person space, while also providing some updated statistics about trends in the marketplace. The ladies will also answer your questions. So if you have questions for either of our guests, drop them in the comments now or during the program as we move the conversation forward, because our goal is to provide you with resources that you need to fill those vacant positions quickly and effectively. So it is my pleasure to welcome Laura and Kyla to the studio. Hey, ladies, thanks for joining me.
Thanks, April. Thanks for having us. Good to see you.
Yes.
Hello,
Good
April.
to see you both as well. Hi. So I'm going to just start off, if we can, with some brief introductions. I think, Laura, you may be more familiar to some of our viewers here in town. So if you'll just start off the introductions, and then Kyla will kick to you.
Sure, thank you. So I'm Laura West here in the Middle Georgia area. My title in the past has been Business Development Manager. But during these unusual times that we're all facing, I'm doing dual roles. So I'm also selling and recruiting for our office.
Perfect.
My name is Kyla Glenn. I am the Director of Recruitment for our Georgia and Alabama markets. Very happy to be here with you all.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Kyla, let's start with you. So in your role, with the organization and your experience in staffing, recruitment, and everything that goes with that, what does it look like, both for candidates and employers, as they return to not only the workforce from perhaps some people taking some time off, but also I know a lot of people are moving their operations, whether back from working at home or changing some of the restrictions around that. What are you seeing in the landscape there?
Well, we're actually seeing from an employer standpoint, with a lot of our clients, they did not slow down. They actually ramped up, and the need for good talent continued to progress over the course of COVID, because we do a lot of logistics, light industrial, and manufacturing and distribution. So those are all areas that actually had an upswing during COVID. So what I'm seeing from employers is having to change a lot of their operations on the fly, having to hire at large scale that they were not prepared for, which is why a lot of them would call in for our help. And what I saw with employees is that they've moved around a lot. So not necessarily they're not working at all. Some, yes, a very large number, but a lot of them we have lost to turnover because they have options now that they didn't have available to them previously. Some of those options are a lot of employers wanting to train. So people who previously maybe did not have forklift experience, now they have an option to go and obtain a skill at an employer who's willing to train for that type of thing. So it's a fine dance between employer and employee at this point. So that's mostly what I've seen.
That's great insight, and I want to park on this for just a second. One of the groups that we've seen kind of impacted and shifting during this disruption, if you will, is the role of women in the workplace and the options that so many people have now to either work from home, or people that have used this. I mean, we've jokingly talked, at least in our office, about people who've made COVID career changes. Can you speak a little bit about some of that?
I can, and this is not the first time that we've seen this in our country, right?
Right.
Women getting to work and in large numbers, and that opening up for us, which is wonderful, even in jobs that they previously may have thought they couldn't do. So we are seeing that in a lot of our light industrial manufacturing, and women moving up in the workplace. We've seen that a lot as well. As Laura will tell you, with her role, everyone is all hands on deck. Everyone is spread a little thin. We're all taking on roles that we may not previously have had to in the past. So women historically maybe not being in a sales role, and they're in a customer service role, and now that salesperson has found another job, and now that woman has turned into a salesperson. She's been watching that salesperson for the bulk of her career, right? She knows what to do, and now she has that in to be able to step into that role and do that. So I am a strong believer of change being a good thing, as long as we can redirect quickly and change quickly with the times. And that is what every employer has had to do. And it has been difficult, but I've seen America just pull together in these hard times and make the concessions needed so that we could stay afloat. And it has been difficult, but it's been beautiful to watch.
Yeah, I really couldn't agree more. And I brought Laura on to get some comments from her. So I know even at the chamber, we had some turnover and people who had, opportunities to do something different at a time where the work that we do looked a little uncertain, and the future was hard to see. And I don't think we can say enough good things about the employees within organizations that have stuck with it, that are doing more with less, and encouraging employers to recognize that effort. So Laura, I'm going to give you just a minute to kind of piggyback on that discussion and share some of the things that you're seeing around that as well.
Yeah, well, I definitely agree with that. I know personally, Kyla and I both can speak to this. I mean, we as women in the workplace have taken on more because our whole organization, we're just like everyone else. And we've had to do more with less. And that's why I stepped, started doing a dual role, because as we are starting our companies, like she said, they've not slowed down. The workforce did maybe, but their jobs did not.
Right.
And so we are now really having to all hands on deck to handle the recruiting flood that's probably fixing to come in.
Yeah.
And it's going to take more of us to put more people to work. And I know, like here in my role, like I said, I went from doing just sales to now I'm hiring, I'm interviewing, I'm selling, I'm doing it all. And I think employers just need to, and I think they do, I think most employers do, recognize when you have someone that's taken on more than they normally do, just show appreciation. I know Kyla and I, our bosses, are wonderful about truly showing us how much they appreciate us taking on these dual roles. Little things matter. Things matter. Just show appreciation. I mean, just somebody brought me a cup of ice cream yesterday. Can I just say, made my day, ice cream.
Yeah.
So the little things make a big difference. And for women, you're talking about women in the workforce, I think it's been what I have loved seeing is that there have been women that have been in roles, let's just say hospitality, for example. Hospitality got hit really hard. And
Right.
You had so many people, men and women, that thought, especially women, well, what am I going to do? I don't have certain skill sets to do something different. And we're trying to teach them, yes, you do. You have customer service skills. You can stand on your feet for long periods of time. So we're able to show people how they can take those skills that they didn't even realize was beneficial and show them. We have a lot of women going into manufacturing and logistics now, more so than probably I've ever seen before. And it's because they're entry-level positions that we can use your hospitality skills and show you how to use those in manufacturing and logistics. So I know that we're seeing an uptick in women joining some of those workforces that were more male dominated in the past.
Yeah, kind of non-traditional for them. Well, and that's exciting. I know, one of the things that we probably hear most lately around kind of, the short staffing being the new pandemic, and I can't tell you how many of those posters are in windows all across our community. But a major point of frustration for our employers is, once they get the job posted and they've got applicants, I know we're going to talk about interview tips in a minute, but do y'all have any advice for what employers can do to get people to show up for interviews, or encouragement to those job seekers to kind of fulfill those appointments? Because it really does take a lot. Y'all know how long it takes to actually hire and onboard someone new, but when you've got appointment after appointment not showing up, are there any things that y'all are seeing that maybe are working for some businesses or organizations or lines of business that our viewers today can take away?
Kyla, you want me to go, or you want to go?
We can both go.
All right, you go first.
I'll start. I will absolutely say that my recruiting team, we have seen just a huge number of no call, no shows, right? And that is going to happen in a competitive market like this. What you can do to mitigate that is to make sure that your recruiters are being brutally honest. Let's not sugarcoat, let's not sell a job, but let's offer an honest depiction of what that job is going to be when people get there. Tell them the bad, tell them the good, and tell them the bad first, and then stop and say, are you truly interested in this job? Do you truly think this is something you're going to want to do in the future that you can stick with for 6 months to a year? And get their buy-in, listen to them, take note. Because a lot of times we do have people that are interviewing and showing up because those are requirements for unemployment, and that's just the honest truth.
Right.
So a longer phone screen process, a longer process on the front end will save you a lot of heartache on the back end. And then close that with, after you have their buy-in, close that with the good things about this job. Yes, it's dirty. Yes, it's hard labor. Yes, you're working long hours.
You're going to make good money.
You're going to make good money. It's Monday through Friday. You get to have work-life balance. You get to be with your children. You work at 6:30. You're off at 3:30. You still got a whole afternoon to do whatever you like.
Yeah.
There are good to all jobs. And as Laura said, we are very well cared for and appreciated in our organization. And I would encourage any employer who isn't taking time out, that's almost just as important as your interviewing process at this point, that when you get these people on site, you retain them, that you keep them, that you listen to them and you walk the floor, you know their names, you know a little bit about their family. Those things for people who are working very hard for any organization right now will go a very long way. People tend to stay in jobs they're happy in. $1 or $2 historically, we have data and facts that $1 or $2 doesn't make or break someone staying or going to a company. What makes or breaks that is how they're treated. So in these trying times, definitely get your staff, your HR team, your leaders, your managers, and have a conversation with them about their humanity and their stress levels in their jobs right now, because I'm sure they've gone up. We're all stressed and pressed. Our CEO works in our senior vice president. They're two of the hardest working people I've ever seen. Sometimes go to those people that are even above you and say, how are you doing? How's your day going? You need a break? Is there anything I can take off your plate? Those few little things, you would be surprised how they will retain the most exhausted employee. They really will.
Yeah. Well, and you hit on a couple of things that I want to park on for a second. So, it's been a while since we've been in competition for talent to the degree that we are now. So you said, people asking people if they're willing to say 6 months to a year. And, for so many, years, employers were hesitant to perhaps hire military spouses because, at Robbins, that means they're only going to be here 2 to 3 years. Hey, 2 to 3 years can make a huge difference in an organization. But even more so looking at, if we scale this down, a lot of the people in our membership and listening today, they maybe have 5 or 6 employees. So they're not big corporations. They're not, manufacturers and things. But if you lose one employee out of 5, that's 20% of your workforce. You lose 2, that's 40. And it really does change the dynamic. It changes the, the culture and all of those things, that it is so important to have open dialogue, to show appreciation when you can. And I love your ice cream reference, Laura, because it is so true. I mean, whether it's a quick milkshake break in the afternoon, or, I mean, just words of appreciation and things that maybe aren't direct compensation. But if you're able to offer flex time or time off, those are obviously appreciated. But I think it comes back to knowing your people and knowing what priorities are going to matter to them and what's going to stick. Laura, what do you have to add to that?
Yeah, I was going to say, to add on to that, just, one of the things that we've seen, the people that have been hit the hardest during this are the single parents.
Yeah.
I mean, when you have kids and I'm married, I've got a 20-year-old to help me with my 9-year-old. If I had not had her, my husband and I wouldn't have been able to continue doing what we were doing when we were having to homeschool and all that. So
Right.
For that, it's just being an employer that recognizes those people. Single parents are some of the usually some of the hardest working people you'll have. And just knowing when times are tough, just to try to be more flexible with them, try to be more understanding. They are going to have emergencies. They are going to have things going on with the kids. And hopefully we're at the end of that. And hopefully everything will be more back to normal for us. But I know I've seen that's probably, especially single moms, they were very hard hit this year.
Yeah. Well, and I think you brought up a good point too about flexibility, because I think that was one of my big takeaways in our session last month with Michael and Nicole. I hope that flexibility in the workplace isn't short-lived. I think, so many of us, whether it was the rigid, 8 to 5 with no flexibility on, the hours worked, regardless, we don't count if they're working longer, but you come in at 8:04, and we're making a big deal as employers, or, finding opportunities. So many companies found that a lot of their work can be done from home, or in hours other than 8 to 5, and in ways other than the traditional cookie cutter job descriptions we had outlined prior to this.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that employers take away understanding that good talent is worth keeping and worth fighting for and working for, to offer some of those flexible benefits. And a lot of times just being able to leave to pick your kid up in the afternoon, because you come in early, is enough to keep them in a job long term, more so than that extra $1 or $2 an hour. So let's talk about the recruitment process. Let's talk about interviews specifically, because I know, so many, we're hearing about places that are hiring without interviews, people that are doing virtual interviews first, or some kind of virtual screening, or in person. What, just in just a couple of minutes, y'all give me a couple of tips and tricks that really seem to be helping employers as well as job seekers right now as it comes to interviews.
So I'll jump in first, Kyla. I would say the employees are going to be competing with a lot of other employees to get these jobs. So when you go in for an interview, be dressed for success. That is, the first impressions make a huge difference on us, on our clients that we're trying to help. So, even I don't care if it's a job opening to go clean the streets. If you come in for an interview, be dressed for success, because that is the number one impression people get, employers get, is when you first walk in. And then, and some of those tips doesn't mean you have to go out and buy a suit. If you have a nice, outfit at home that you go out on the weekends or whatever, just dress the best you can. And then be mindful that you are in an interview. Do not have your cell phone out. Don't be on your cell phone. Just use just common sense. If somebody was interviewing with you, what would you expect? And so that's probably the biggest thing I could say is you got to dress for success. Don't dress for the part. If you're going to be a construction worker, I understand you're not going to dress nice. You're going to wear your steel toe boots and that type of stuff when you go to work. But when you come in for an interview, dress to impress. Kyla?
Absolutely, Laura. What I would say is, recruiters behind the scenes, we are working ourselves just nonstop. Laura's been working late hours trying to communicate and get people in the door, get people hired. So what I would say is make sure you build a strong relationship with that recruiter. If you got a better job, we are cheering you on. Our job is to make sure that you are being put to work. We want to be the ones at Spherion to do that. But if you got something somewhere else, give us the courtesy of a call. Build that relationship that you can have for years. Laura and I both have people that for years they have been working for us. They find other employment, they're able to come back, they have a good track record. I think that we've lost some of that in our culture of building that strong relationship, that working relationship. So no matter what the job is for, if from a $12 an hour picker packer to a $50,000 accountant, we are your friend in the market. And if you communicate with us, hey, I took another job, that's fine. But the no call, no showing to interviews, that is the integrity of who you are. There's nothing that we can coach or train about that. You have to decide every day who you are and who you want to be in the world. So let's all step up. We're asking our employers to step up. We're asking them to be lax on the need for resumes if it's a lower skilled job. We're asking them to be lax on interview times, do virtual interviews. So we are behind the scenes working to your benefit if you are a candidate, an employee. So we ask now that you also step up and rise to the occasion and be the best you can be in the market of talent that we have. And give people courtesy calls if you're not going to show up for an interview call, if you're going to be late. And don't take jobs that you don't want. This is a buyer's market. It is a buyer's market. The first I've seen in my over a decade career in corporate and staffing recruiting. And so you have options. So think about these jobs. Think about the employer. It costs an employer lots of money to hire and onboard people. If you're hearing red flags and this is something you want to do for the next 6 months, be honest about that, especially with recruiting teams. Our teams have dozens of jobs. We're not just offering one opportunity at one company. So we welcome you to say, this isn't for me. What else do you have for me? We will work very hard to find something else. So those are the best tips I can give for employees, for employers. Make it as easy as possible. My team, Laura and I, we've had to change the entire way that we recruit in the last year. We have a brand new recruiting team. We've had to retrain. We've had recruiters with us for years, and we're doing it a different way. Recognize that quickly, employers, and make the changes quickly. Make them operational, but make sure that people are applying quick and you're getting back to them quick, because they will not be on the market for long, especially the best of the best in talent.
Yeah, I think you said a couple of things there, Kyla, that I think are so important. Courtesy, whether it's employers, once you fill the position, letting applicants who are still hanging out in the wings, making sure that they know, as well as employees, candidates looking for work, just to have that common courtesy, and then transparency. Just let people know what's going on, what the job is. I think that's going to go a long way, because you're right. There are a lot of people looking for work, and we've seen some real innovation. I'm going to give a shout out real quick to Tasty Prayer Cookie Bar. I loved this. They were hiring a cashier, and I hope they filled that. I need to ask Sunday how that went, but they had, because that representative is interacting with the public and someone they really focused on, a warm, bubbly, friendly personality. They had them send a quick video of themselves over Facebook Messenger as a precursor to any interview, just to see how the person presented and how they projected their themselves. And I thought, what a great way. We've got all of these tools that are non-traditional for interviews, if we're being honest, but they can be great screening tools, because we know that employers are inundated with lots of candidates. And so if you are hiring somebody who's going to be in a public facing role, a little quick, 30-second video introduction might be a really easy way to screen out some people that might be better suited for other roles in your organization. So We touched on this at the beginning, and I know a lot of people that were interested in this are anxious to hear from both of you about the impact of us ending the supplemental unemployment benefits here in Georgia later this summer. I know that hasn't officially happened yet, but is scheduled to happen the end of this month. What can you guys share about what impact that's going to have? What you think in terms of trends or what we're going to see in the marketplace as a result of that. And Kyla, I think you wanted to take this one first.
Yes, but before I take that, April, Laura, I will be in the Middle Georgia area in a couple of weeks, and I'm going to need to go to this cookie bar.
We will hook you up. I'll make sure that you know exactly where it is, and I'll let Sunday know you're coming.
Weather's heating up. I'm gonna need a cookie bar date, y'all.
There you go. They have the best ice cream sandwiches as well. So hot summertime, we'll get you.
Absolutely. So one of the things with that is we haven't actually seen the impact, right? Not only is that a couple weeks away, but people's benefits have to dwindle down. People have to get a little desperate. You know, they have to see their bank account decreasing before we see a huge impact. However, even before that's starting to happen, with our recruiting team and the way that we have been restructured, we are digging deep and reaching out to the trenches. And so Laura is on ground zero. She's in the branch every single day. She can speak to this as well, but we are seeing an uptick in who we're hiring. Unfortunately, what we're also seeing is an uptick on turnover. So I would say for every 10 people we hire, we are having turnover with 6 of them, and we're having to rehire them, which is a huge cost. It's a huge exhaustion to our resources.
Are they job jumping? Are they?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And there's something better. I mean, there's the opportunity for something better to come along much more readily than, I mean, honestly, at any time in my 20+ year professional career.
Absolutely. And I would also say it's not always for something better. People like the new shiny thing, right?
Yeah.
People love that. That's why we have lines for new cell phones and shoes and whatever the consumer thing is.
Right.
So people like the new shiny employer as well. They know their employer that they're working for. I mean, let's be honest. We have turnover in our own company. I hire for our internal staff as well. So anybody looking for a job, I'm hiring in Byron for recruiters. A little plug. But we're seeing that. So we're seeing the hiring pick up, but we're seeing the turnover as well. So I would suggest to any employers please be ready for turnover. Even when people come back to work in swarms, we're going to see in a market as small as some of ours are in our organization, they're going to work at every client we own before they get a landing place. We're seeing that. So think of ways now to retain your talent so that you aren't hit by the turnover when people do swarm in. I do see that coming though. I see them swarming.
That's great information. Laura, what do you have to add?
Yeah, I've definitely seen a small uptick lately, and people are making comments. My unemployment is fixing to run out. I've got to find something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we've been trying to have those hard conversations for a while. And we've been telling our guys that, our ladies and guys that we have job openings. They're not, have not wanted to take it because they're making more to stay home. And we've been preparing them. We've been saying employers want the people that have been working during this difficult time.
Right.
That's who they're looking for. And that's who we're looking for, and do you want to be one of the swarm, or do you want to go ahead and get a job before the swarm happens?
Right.
So we're seeing a little bit of an uptick, but we know we're fixing to see it a lot higher, which is why we've been getting our recruiting team ready to be able to handle what's probably fixing to come in the door.
Yeah. Absolutely. Any tips for employers? I know we talked about, the swarm, but when they're trying to find that diamond in the rough and perhaps somebody who, has the potential to staying on and growing within their organization, are there any things that are sort of standing out for you guys for those hires that you've seen that have sort of stood the test of time, at least lately, that are staying beyond the 6 to 12 months? Any secret sauce there y'all can share?
Well, I would say on my end, and the other employers are probably thinking the same thing. we're looking for the people that's been toughing it out. I mean, we're looking for the people that have stayed out there working. Maybe they didn't have the job they wanted, but they stayed out there to help us keep our economy going. I was in a department store Sunday, and they were very understaffed and overworked. And I felt so bad for the young girl that was the cashier. She had not had her lunch break. It was supposed to already be off, and there was tons of people behind me, and they were ranting and raving and, why is this taking so long? And I'm like, because they can't get people to come to work. You need to appreciate this young girl that's standing here waiting on us. And so it's the employers, everybody's like us. We're looking for the people that have been out there working.
Right.
We want those hard workers that have been keeping this economy going for us.
Yeah. And I think going back to something Kyla said earlier, I think if you haven't been out there working and you're wondering or worried, I think transparency goes such a long way. If you've kept your kids home in virtual school and needed to be the parent staying home in order for that to happen, be upfront and honest. I think that's what you lead with. We got a question in our Robins Works groups. And for any of those of you watching on, Facebook or YouTube, that Facebook group, it's been amazing to see the difference in the type of job announcements we got when we first launched that were very rigid, that were very, wrote in the way that, we'd always seen job announcements to now, their employers are marketing their companies as a friendly, family-friendly work environment with flexible hours, and they're really speaking the language of job seekers right now. But we got a question, about a candidate sector, if you will, that likely would have been seen as less desirable to hire, and some of us may have written it in that, because they had some kind of offense on their criminal record that we wouldn't consider them. I think now is a time for people to just be bold and in presenting themselves, sharing the good as well as the bad. But tell that story, tell your why. Either how you've overcome something, or like I said, if you were the one working from home, explaining that, I think goes a long way in building trust with that potential employer to, hopefully land a fruitful relationship. Anything either of y'all want to add on that topic before we move on?
I do, April. That is, excuse me, an excellent point. We're human too, guys. All your hiring managers, we have a past, we have a life. We are understanding. If you come and you have a record and it is not certain types of crimes that are obvious that we won't be able to hire, give your life story, show how you've changed, give a reference of your pastor, give a reference of a previous employer. Don't be scared to lay it all out there on the line. My grandpa used to say, in any type of thing in life, all they can tell you is no, and no ain't gonna hurt you. All we can say is unfortunately no. So try. I would say that. And then April, you asked about diamonds in the rough. As a person who's hiring a lot right now, and we need recruiters. We do. I would say no panic buying, you guys. If you're an employer, don't panic hire. Really take your time and find the person that, intuition is a real thing. Find the person who you, at the end of that interview, say to yourself, this is it. This is the person. The Senior Vice President, Nicole Crawford, and I, we work very closely together to hire people. And nothing feels better than when she calls me and says, yeah, Kyla, okay, pull the trigger. So don't panic hire. Make sure that you are spending sufficient time with these people. Test them if you can. Really get to know someone who you're hiring and make sure they are a cultural fit as well as a skill set fit. You can't have one without the other. People do not thrive in a culture that they are not happy in. And that's the truth. There's
we can
somewhere.
Teach skill. If we're being honest, for the most part, you can teach skill.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, you can. But find a cultural fit, find somebody who really works within your organization. Take your time and hire them. I will tell you, I get it. Every minute that we're in business that we are missing recruiters, we are missing $1. That's our business. That's true. However, to take the time out to recruit, to train, to integrate them in your environment, and then they leave. Now the rest of your staff is a little solemn. You have to retrain someone. You lost weeks of time. It's not worth it, guys. Try your best to hire right the first time so you're not rehiring in a couple of months. That's the absolute best advice I could give to an employer.
Yep. Well, and it's so true. I mean, it's been tough for us not to fill the empty positions that we have. But in addition to finding the right people, one of the things that we found is the jobs have changed since we had people in those positions. I mean, one of the things, we manage a tiny group of 20,000 people on Facebook now. That's something all of our staff is doing that was in nobody's job description, a year ago. And so really taking time to look at what is the job, is what I had in the description the same thing that we need now, and finding those people that kind of give you a little bit of a heart flutter, like, okay, I could totally see them being part of our future and our organization together, because a bad employee will stick around like gum on the bottom of your shoe. They're there a lot longer than you want them. And even if you scrape it off, there's still that residue. There's evidence that they were there. So I think that's, great advice. We've got a couple of other questions, but we are approaching the 40-minute mark. So I just wanted to pause real quick and throw one to Laura. So I know, we're back in and we're all kind of sick of talking about COVID and the impacts that it's had. We touched on this a little bit earlier, but didn't really dive in on adjustments that have been made in the workplace because of that, and what you feel like are the benefits of kind of working through some of that. So Laura, if you'll share with us a little bit on that.
Oh my gosh. Well, let me talk just from an employee point of view, me being an employee. To me, the benefit has been I've had to get out of my comfort zone and do some things that I wasn't accustomed to doing. When we first had to go remote, I did not like Zoom calls. I mean, I still don't like it. I don't like looking at myself right now on this video. And so I wasn't used to selling over the phone. But as an employee, I will tell you, you got to go with the flow. Times are changing. You got to change with it. And now I can tell you I'm a better salesperson than I was a year ago, because I learned to adapt and thrive. And I would say that's the biggest thing for employees to realize. You've just got to hang in there. You've got to adapt. You got to understand it's not always going to be this way. The whole entire world, and this is what I like telling everybody, we are all connected right now, because any of us, no matter where we're working, if we connect with each other, we're going to have some of the same stresses. The whole world's had the same stresses. And so just understand, you're not in it alone. If you're an employer stressed out, if you're an employee stressed out, you are not in it alone. We have all been there, and we've all had to make changes. We've all had to adapt, and we are all going to be better for it. We're better together. That's one of our mottos in Middle Georgia, better together. And we're all going to be better for it. So hang in there if you're an employee. If you're an employer, hang in there and be flexible, and just realize you're asking people to do things they're not accustomed to do, and understand that's going to bring them some extra stress, and just recognize that and just be patient with the employees.
Great advice, Laura. We're almost out of time, ladies. Is there anything either that we didn't talk about that you want to add, or any closing thoughts that you want to leave for those that are watching, from their office or home, or those that are going to be watching the replay after a while?
I do have one closing thought. I love listening to Laura speak on our business, because we feel so much of the same way. We do have to jump in. But one thing employers can do to make that transition easier with all the additional things that they're expecting is to train. If you have employees who are willing, who are flexible, who are wanting to assist in keeping your company afloat during the tough times, train them, give them good expectations of what you're expecting in these new roles. And above all, give them the confidence to do the new role. I think that's something that Laura and I have gotten from our employer, the confidence. We believe in you. We would not have you do this if we didn't think you could. I know it's scary. I know it's tough. And give them some type of tips and training on how to do their new role well. And I think that would go a long way. Other than that, please reach out to us if you're looking for employment or if you need help finding employees. We are here for you, Middle Georgia, and we have really great relationships in that area. So even if you're calling because you need more tips than what we've provided, you have questions and you're watching this after live, give us a call. We're here for you.
Very good. Well, ladies, thank you so much. This was time well spent, I know, for me, and hopefully for all of you watching. The replay of today's broadcast will be in our Robbins Works Facebook group through the same link you're viewing now or on our YouTube page. That's going to wrap up our time with Laura and Kyla today. Thank you so much for all of the wisdom that you imparted and the great resources and the partnership that we continue to have with Spherion Middle Georgia. We'll see you guys next time.